everyone. Hello. Ah,
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode with Lit. Hi.
oh, we didn't change the box up the top.
Okay. Oopsie daisy. Now can we hear everyone?
Hello. No more
Hello.
popo.
We
Can you hear
forgot to
me?
change the box. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay. So is there a delay or can you? Everything's good. Okay.
No, I think it's
Well.
fine.
Okay. So let's look at the chats. Nomo Popo says hi, Lumpy and Isha. Hi, Janet and Isha. Shireen says, sounds good. Shireen says, hi, comrades. Well, welcome everyone
Hello, everyone.
and the sound is great according to Davy Johnson. Welcome everyone to another episode of Lit with Lenin. Um, where to begin?
Where to begin? Do you want to talk
Uh,
about anything before we get into the reading, or?
Yeah, I do. Again, somebody whose name we shall not mention, just because I don't want to give him more attention than he already is grabbing, wrote a hit piece on Gerald Horne and about the counter-revolution of 1776, which is a
Mhm.
great book. He is clearly very Belay, which is white in Russian, and he seems to think that Gerald Horne is supporting the British Empire when he called it the Counter Revolution of 1776. And it was such a bad faith piece because he doesn't really quote anything that Gerald Horne says in the book. He just classifies it, which I think is very like if he wrote errors, you should be able to quote it and cite it, right?
Exactly. That's the whole point of going. When you are going to go take down a piece, you're supposed to be pulling out where the author was wrong, or where the person that's talking was wrong, and say this is exactly why they were wrong. You can't just sit there and make assumptions, because I read that book. I read
I
it
loved it.
last summer, I think. Yeah, it was a great book, and um it it's not supporting the British government. I saw the discourse going on, and I didn't know who
Yeah,
started it, and now I do.
we shall
So
not mention his name just because I don't want to give him attention.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but the thing is that it's like saying if you say that Rhodesia was, I mean, okay, when you go to London and then when you went to Rhodesia where they literally hunted black people for sport, you can say that Rhodesia is a counter-revolutionary movement compared to London, right?
yeah, yeah,
And no one is supporting the ethno state of Rhodesia. So if you are and just because you say that Rhodesia is a racist ethno state does not mean you're standing for the British Empire, or you think them putting down the Mau Mau rebellion is good or anything to that effect. You're just
yeah.
recognizing the way Rhodesia came as a state
Hmm.
with the
Like they could be it.
unilateral Declaration of
You
Independence.
you can equally. It's kind of in the same way that, like, if you say something against Biden doesn't mean you like Trump. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's so, like, people, like, because you're talking about one side of it, people always seem to think, oh, then there's only one other side. And no, there's also the whole I don't agree with either one of you,
Mhm.
and we have to be able to address what's wrong on both of those sides that are getting it wrong. We have to be able to address it, and to sit there and say, like, oh, you addressing this is saying, the British were good. No, there's nowhere in that book
Where
where
he
Horn is
ever said
saying.
British were anything other than what the British were. But that does not mean that the US was a. I mean, and of course, Rhodesia transformed into Zimbabwe, so there's nothing that's stopping you from having a revolution in like an ethno state, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
So
so
I
if you
don't.
can transform Rhodesia into Zimbabwe, I'm sure if you work hard and okay, I'm not so sure about this, but I hope I'm wrong about this. That one day you can also get transform the US into something better.
I mean, the problem with the American Revolution is it wasn't a people's revolution. It
Mm-mm.
wasn't coming from the people at all. It wasn't coming from any of the people. It was coming from the landed white rich
Slave
people,
owners.
slave owners, and they're the ones that were putting it forth. So to sit there and say because you're against that you are for the British, I don't know. I don't know. I've joked and said I actually wish they lost because maybe we would have had a health care by now. But I I mean the whole thing is stupid. Like it had to be a revolution from the people to be an
A
actual
revolution.
revolution. Like we didn't
Yeah.
do anything but shift the power from one set of like white patriarchy to another.
Basically, you shifted the power from the older fail sons to younger fail sons. That's what the U.S. was always for the second child, the Harrys of the world. So you switched from the Williams to the Harrys.
Yes, yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Ironically, Harry lives in Canada now, right?
is he Canada? I thought he was L.A.
Was he, okay, where does he live in Canada or the U.S.?
I thought he was living in the U.S. I thought they lived in
Mm.
L.A. I
Okay, so
thought
where Megan's
I could be wrong.
that would make sense. That's where Megan's family's from. Can somebody
Yeah, I
Google
mean
it?
they'd be. I think they're living in L.A. Harry in do Harry and Megan live?
Mm.
Montecito. Yep.
Yep.
Well,
Okay,
that's
so
not
they moved
L.A.
to
Well,
okay,
it's
close enough.
California.
That's where. So is that where her family is?
I don't know where she grew up. Where did
I
Megan?
thought she grew up somewhere near LA.
She was born in L.A. Yeah,
Okay.
born and raised in
Um.
Los Angeles. So
Okay. So Shireen says settler colonial ethno nationalism is of course far worse than run of the mill imperialism. Absolutely. Nomo Papo says son says Kelly, so it must be Kelly. I don't know what. Okay, so yeah, you just moved from the Williams of this world to the Harrys. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, and also word of mouth really helps. I've been getting really hit really badly with paid subscribers. A lot of people are canceling. And I know not all of you can afford to become a paid subscriber, but all of you can definitely recommend us to your friends. And maybe one of your friends will become one. But we
yeah,
really are hurting. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah. So yeah, I saw that. I saw that discourse. I saw some of it yesterday. I wasn't sure where it was coming from, and then I saw a little bit more this morning because you had a tweet out about it. So then,
Yeah.
or you were responding to someone or whatever.
I
But
basically tweeted out that just because you think Rhodesia is bad doesn't mean you support the British Empire.
exactly, like it
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't like. I don't get how people think everything has to be black or white. Like it has to be this or that. There's nothing of nuance in between. We're not allowed to make criticisms unless we're on one side or the other side, and we can only criticize the other side. Like
Yeah,
that's
and
what they want us to believe.
to me, this is like a lot of white fragility and illogical patriotism where they just can't handle the truth about what the US is. Like, it's not our fault that this is how the country like happened to evolve before we were born, right?
No, and that's the whole thing. Like in that whole discourse, oh well, it's not. I didn't do these things or something like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but
Yeah.
that now you understand that at least, so you can say that America was never a great country. America was not. The United States was not made to help the poor. It wasn't
Or
like,
no, literally, in James Madison said, in the purpose of our state is to protect those with property from those without.
mm-hmm.
It's one of the most. In fact, the founding fathers thought that poor people colluding together itself was morally wrong.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is, and we just have to accept it for what it is. And it seems like there's an emotional connection, like a white fragile, like as in you seem to think that uh, just because I mean, just because people who things that happened before you were born, I don't know why that you think that reflects on you personally, and that's what I see a lot of it as.
Well, that's the whole thing too, and that's why, like, when someone says white women, like, like if someone says an insult about white women, I'm a white woman. I can sit there and go, I agree, because I see it. I see it amongst my peers, right? So I can
Yeah.
agree, but I can also say, I can figure out where I went wrong. Like, I know I was not perfect. You know what I mean? No one
None of us
is.
are.
You get things wrong. You're taught things that you need to later get rid of and stuff like that. And
Uh-huh.
um, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt me for you to say, oh, white women did this. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Like,
This shirt makes me look a little fat, though, doesn't it?
what are you talking about?
I don't know. This shirt looks. I don't know.
Well,
I
it's
don't.
just
Okay.
you're not seeing. Don't worry about it. You don't look
Okay. Good to know.
fat. You're sitting
You.
next to me. You're fine. Like, don't worry about it.
Okay.
But so
Oh, by the way,
Rob is saying mission succeeded. I don't know what
Harry
he's saying.
came to the U.S. Yes,
Oh, all
mission
right, okay.
succeeded. That's essentially what it's always been. You had the first people on the Mayflower were just a whole bunch of fail
Yep.
sons from the Plymouth Company. I forgot whatever the stupid company was called.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and they were from a prospecting. So the idea was they'd go
Mhm.
and prospect the land and find all the riches and then send it back so that people in
Yeah.
England can have a lot of profit.
My relation to the Mayflower, because I am like second gen from Canada, but the people in Canada started off down in the Mayflower. There's a section of them where the
How did
Billingtons
they
and
get to Canada?
um they just moved up there because it was like, at the time, it had something to do with the fishing industry and the farming and stuff and where it was. So a lot of people from Massachusetts, and you got to consider too, like Maine was Massachusetts, like that was all Massachusetts at the time. It was just one
Mm.
one big thing. So they just moved up towards there, and that's just like
Oh,
getting married to
it was
people.
the Massachusetts Bay Company. Now I remember.
Yes, yeah. Massachusetts Bay, yeah. So like my are the Billingtons, and the Billingtons were
Oh.
part of the Strangers, so they were not Puritans, so they were not liked very much. They also, the full family like survived. They were like one of the only families that didn't lose anyone. There was four of them
Mm.
on the boat, and he was
But
he was he was on there to, he was indentured to the
mhm.
company, and so he was on there doing that. But I mean, I, like I mean, did he have a choice to come over here? I don't know. I mean, like, whatever, he had
Yeah.
debts, and he needed to get rid of the debts and stuff, and I'm not making
Did
any
he succeed?
excuses for. Well, he is the first man. John Billington was the first Englishman to be executed for killing another Englishman.
Oh.
And what he did was he told them to stay off his land. He had his little property, and he told them, and this 17-year-old kept coming onto his property, and he shot him. So he was hung, and then it was his two sons are really kind of actually, there's one son that actually kind of has a there's one son, I don't think they had any kids, and then the other son is the one that is all connected, and it seems like all his family moved up north after, um, because they weren't really religious in that
Mhm.
sense of the Puritans. But I mean, still, I mean, it's like, we came over here, and it doesn't, like, you can't sit there and say, oh, the indentured servants were wrong or right. I mean, it's kind of weird because, like, I don't know if because they can make the choice too to come over here too, right? In some
Maybe
instances.
I don't know yet. I mean, I think it's like a case by case status, case by case. There were some people who had the choice. Some people who were in literally the choice was debtor's prison or the
Yeah,
boat. So it really you have to look at each individual case.
yeah. But I mean, it's still, they were coming over here, and then in the end, like, they ended up, I don't see in what I did, like, that they were slave owners, but I'm sure that there was some sort of weirdness that happened, because
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah,
by the way, the really funniest thing is about you guys know Benedict Cumberbatch.
yeah,
Okay, so in fact, their family was such prolific slave owners that his mother was afraid of him using Cumberbatch as a
yeah,
screen name because in Trinidad they owned such a big plantation. They're like, people will want reparations. And actually, now the Cumberbatch family does need to pay some, like a whole bunch of Cumberbatches in Trinidad money right now, according to what the court has decided.
good, good. And
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. Like, yeah, you should make good on that stuff. Like, you really,
Yeah.
if you
And
if
Dimi
you come into making money and you knew that that was your history, then do something,
Yeah, especially exactly. And Dmitry Ulyanov says the farthest back I can trace my American family is to the 1840s. The family was divided and took up service for each side during the Civil War. The Yank made the rank of captain, and the Confed died. Um,
Yeah.
it's cumbersome being a Cumberbatch. Bah. Um, the case didn't go forward for a long time because no court believed that the name was real. Actually, in Trinidad, everyone who's a Cumberbach or a Botch, Cumberbach or Botch,
I think it's
how
botch.
do you pronounce? Okay,
He said Cumberbatch. Yeah.
Cumberbatch is black. Um, yeah, there's a lot of Cumberbatches in Trinidad.
Yeah. I mean, the same thing, like, we have all black people that are named with
Oh my God! In
Irish
South
names, and
Carolina, you know, in South Carolina, there's Vander. It's like a really extremely Dutch name, like Vander Heinstein. Like it's extremely
yeah,
Dutch.
yeah,
And when I was, I thinking, my mind thinks it's Vander Beek. No, but it's not Vander Beek. Vander Beek is the guy from Dawson's Creek. It's very close to that. Vander something, a very Dutch name. And then when you go there, everyone who's there is black, and I was like, "Whoa!" That was like because I was expecting like some tall like Dutch person, and it was very strange. And then I was like, "Ah!" And then somebody told me in South Carolina that often people who were enslaved were forced to like they had their slave master's
masters'
last name
names.
given to
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
I did not know that. Somebody told me that when I was like it was funny because there was an old lady and I was just a little taken back, and then she explained that her last name was this like really complicated Dutch last name because a lot of enslaved
yeah,
people tend to
yeah.
have
That
their
they didn't. I mean, they were given a name. You know what I mean? Like, they were given a
they
name,
were
and
like
then
yeah. So if his name was Anne Vanderbeek, if your name was Anne and their last name was Vanderbeek, you just had to have be Vanderbeek
yeah,
or whatever it
because
was.
you were of there, like, you belong to them now.
Exactly.
That's why you were
So
given that name.
yeah.
So yeah,
And then that just kind of stayed through the generations, but it was very interesting how yeah, they even took away forced you to have their last. So weird. I did not know that.
yeah, yeah. But so, do you want to do reading, or do you want anything
Yeah,
else?
let's do reading. Oh, one last thing. I forget. Oh, Brazil. Oh, we talked about this, but Lula did a good crackdown on the Bolsonaroists. And what is Bolsonaro doing in Miami, and why is he allowed to stay in Miami?
Yeah. Did they get the security guy back, or is he still in
No,
Miami too? He's
he's
still
still in
in the United
Miami.
States. Yep. Yep. So yeah, and the Lulag. I love.
I
I
wish
love
it
that
were
they
a
called
Lulag.
it the Lulag. I know it really should be, and then they're like, "Oh, people died in the Lulag. Oh, they committed
Who?
suicide. Someone committed
No?
suicide. That's what they said.
Really?
Someone committed suicide."
Allegedly. Okay, I need to
But
see
they're but
bodies.
they're then they're trying to say that people are dying in the
Yeah,
Lulag.
right.
But
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
like,
Can you
okay.
yeah, I need to see proof. Unless I see proof, I'm not gonna believe that anyone died.
Unless it was by
Okay,
their
so
own hand, because they're an idiot.
yeah, well, like I said, I need to see a body before I believe anyone died. There's been enough like Cold War nonsense that in order for me to believe crap, it's not my fault. You just kept on lying. Can somebody share, Janet? Can you share the piece in the chat? Left wing communism, the several conclusions part.
Yeah, I put it up at the top, but I'm gonna put it back into the comments
Okay.
again right now.
Okay. So yeah. After this, we're gonna go for proletarian revolution and the renegade Chomsky.
Do you know
Ha
what's
ha ha.
really weird? On YouTube,
What?
we're like the big boxes on YouTube.
We're the big boxes?
Yeah, we're the big boxes. We're not. We don't. We're not. Where we're at.
Is this better?
I don't know. Let me see.
Are we
No,
now?
we're
We're
still
little
a big
box.
box. Oh, we're little boxes now, and I'm on the other side. Okay, that works
Is this
better.
okay?
That looks good. You can
Okay.
switch you
And
over
next
to
week,
the other side.
next week I'll figure out how to get rid of these numbers.
We're having issues. Okay, so several.
Yeah.
We're on several conclusions
Okay.
of the piece,
I'll
left wing
start reading,
communism.
and then please feel free to interrupt me for comments, Janet.
Yep.
The Russian bourgeoisie revolution of 1905 revealed a highly original turn in world history. In one of the most backwards capitalist countries, the strike movement attained a scope and power unprecedented anywhere in the world. In the first month of 1905 alone, the number of strikers was 10 times the annual average for the previous decade, 1905, 1895 to 1904. From January to October 1905, strikes grew all the time and reached enormous proportion. Under the influence of a number of unique historical conditions, backward Russia was the first to show the world not only the growth by leaps and bounds of independent activity of the oppressed masses in time of revolution. This had occurred in all great revolutions, but also that the significance of the proletariat is infinitely greater than its proportion in the total population. It showed a combination of the economic strike and the political strike, with the latter developing into an armed uprising and the birth of the Soviets, a new form of mass struggle and mass organization of the classes oppressed by capitalism.
So on that paragraph, I mean, that's just like a basic thing, but like I feel like he is kind of explaining like, okay,
People
Russia
saying
was
big box is better. Okay, we'll move to big boxes. Okay.
big box is better. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like this big head. I don't know.
I don't know. People want big boxes, so they're gonna get big boxes.
Oh, they like big box and they cannot lie.
Yeah.
But
So they
yeah, but
want
I
big.
mean, so he's getting into so this is all the conclusions from what we've been previously reading. So he's basically here just saying like these were the conditions and this is what Russia showed you how to do this, right?
And this also means that if you want change, you better organize those strikes.
Yeah, so and that was the sad thing because under COVID we started having a lot of strikes and stuff like that. Like we could have moved on that if well, as we'll see later, we need the conditions in order to move forward and we totally don't have that. So
Yeah, I mean for example, back during Vietnam in the 1960s, dock workers in Louisiana refused to load weapons in order to send to Vietnam. Um, and about a few years ago in Italy, they refused to they refused to like load weapons in order to send to Libya. um but unfortunately we're never gonna get like people don't understand the strategic aspect of protest, as in if you have big weapons, don't you don't have to load it. If you like, you don't have to make it. If you're a big at a weapons factory, you can just, or you could sabotage it. Like, what if
Yes.
you changed one of the materials so that it just doesn't fire,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. There's
but
plenty of things
but
you can
people.
do within that. In those conditions, there's a lot of things that you could do that they don't even realize that you're doing until it's done.
Exactly. The Revolution of February and October of 1917 led to an all round development of the Soviets on a nationwide scale and to their victory in the proletarian socialist revolution. In less than 2 years, the international character of the Soviets, the spread of this form of struggle and the organization to the working class movement, and the historical mission of the Soviets as the gravedigger, heir, and the successor of the bourgeoisie parliamentarism and of bourgeoisie democracy all became clear.
I
But
just
that
I
is not
love
all.
I like that line though. The Soviets as the gravedigger, like they're the ones that like. I just like that.
Yeah. But that is not all. The history of the working class movement now shows that in all countries it is going to go through and is already going through a struggle waged by communism, emergent, gaining strength and advancing towards victory against primarily Menshevism, i.e., opportunism, and social chauvinism, the home brand in each particular country, like patriotic socialism.
Yeah,
I
Patriot.
forgot.
Well, and even like the Soc Dems too can because
Oh yeah,
Soc Dems and Menshevism is like hand in hand, right? They were basically the
identical.
yeah.
Yeah, the Mensheviks didn't really want a revolution. They wanted capitalism to develop, and maybe in 50 years, when there were enough proletarians, you could have a revolution. But then, when Lenin wrote imperialism, he showed that that's never going to happen in a third world country, like a country that's designed to be a third world country. 100 years later, you'll see, like in Congo and.
Yeah, because they're just gonna use people, and I feel like a revolution, and to do the fight. And I'm not saying that you have to be there combating like hand to hand or shooting
Nobody should
people or
be
anything like that.
combating that until
That's
you
not
have
it. But you
enough.
have to be part of the revolution. You have to push it forward. Like then you feel like part of the whole.
Yeah,
Like I think that's an important part of it too. Is that
yeah.
you want to be part of the revolution, not just sit back and let the Soc Dems, oh, we'll get
Misinform the
there.
people.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, no. If possible, I think the best thing is people should be trying to organize an unemployment council,
yeah,
like a union for the unemployed. That would be the best idea ever. And they did that very successfully in 1930s.
yeah.
Uh, because I think that is the biggest, most easily radicalizable group right now within the imperial circles. What do you think?
That, and I'd say tenants too. If you did tenant unions
Oh,
and the unemployed unions, that would actually be a good thing
yeah,
because I think
because right
you'd
now,
hit.
yeah, because they've kind of moved away from the working place, having like a centralized working place for this particular reason. So yeah, tenants union and unemployment. Yeah, those are good starts. Let's get. Um,
The former struggle has developed.
mhm. I forgot where it is. Are we?
Uh, the former struggle has developed in all
Ah, it,
countries.
okay. In less than 2 years, the international of the character of the Soviets, the spread of this form of struggle, and the organization to the world working class movement. Oh, no, 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 no. But that is not all. History of the working class movement now shows that in all countries it is going to go through and it's already going through a struggle waged by communism, emergent, gaining strength, and towards advancing towards victory against primarily Menshevism, i.e., opportunism and social chauvinism, the home brand in each particular country. Then, as a complement, so to say, left wing communism, an infantile disorder. The former struggle has developed in all countries, apparently without any exception, as a duel between the Second International, already virtually dead, and the Third International. The latter struggle is to be seen in Germany, Great Britain, Italy, America. At any rate, a certain section of the industrial workers of the world and of the anarcho syndicalist trends uphold errors of the left wing communism alongside of an almost universal and almost unreserved acceptance of the Soviet system. And in France, the attitude of a section of the former syndicalists towards the political party and the parliamentarianism, also alongside of the acceptance of the Soviet system. In other words, the struggle is undoubtedly being waged not only on an international but even on a worldwide scale.
So I started watching this thing. I was looking like I was gonna have a conversation with Commie Trucker on like propaganda and stuff like that against anti-communism.
Okay, I'll be back. I think my dal makhani, which is on the stove, is ready, so I need to go turn it off.
No.
I'm smelling it right now.
Oh, okay. It's only been a half an hour though.
I know I said 9:00, but I'm smelling it here, so it must be cooked.
Oh, okay.
Smelling it.
All right.
Yeah.
So anyhow, what was I talking about? Yeah, so I like watched this. I just on YouTube I came up to this American Reds and then it was sitting there and I kind of want to actually hear. I hope she can hear me. I don't know if she can, but you can hear me? Okay, good. So like they're sitting there saying like so the CPUSA goes over to Russia now. It's the third, well, they didn't call it the Third International. There's another word for it, right? And Stalin's in the lead of it now. And even in this thing where they're trying to talk about the propaganda against anti-communism propaganda, okay. They're talking about how
sorry, this actually came out really well. See the dal makhani?
I don't know. Oh, lentils and what else is it?
Tomatoes.
Yeah.
See, it came out well.
Good.
That was my instincts are right. I'm glad I turned it off now.
Oh, good. Yeah, beans, like especially with like that kind of like with the sauce that's really heavy like that, they burn really fast when they burn.
Okay. So I turned it off right at the nick of time.
Yes.
It's nice and soft and moist. Sorry for the cooking.
That's okay. So my whole thing was like, even in the propaganda, and I don't even, why was I bringing this up here? I don't remember now where we were at. Oh, because we're talking about the Second and the Third Internationals. And like, so basically Stalin was telling the Americans, like, you have to do it this way.
Lentils and they ignored him, motherfuckers.
We could be lentils with Lenin. That's what we are now called.
Yeah.
Rob has now named us. But like, okay,
so I'm gonna get some. I'm listening, by the way, to every word. Continue to talk while I go get some lentils.
Well, it's that they're worried about if that's all you're eating, like those 3 bites that you took. It's 8:30 for her now, so I don't know. This is usually your dinner time. She must be getting more. That's probably what she's doing. But anyhow, it was weird to me that like they're talking about anti-communism, but they want to still, take down the Stalin bit of it and say that like he was wrong for telling them that they need to do things in a certain way. But like, it's like that's what worked. So I don't know. Like, what do you think on that, Esha, when you come back?
Okay, I came back. No, I'm eating more. See, I got second helping. See,
a nice big. Well, she had to test it first to make sure that it was ready.
So, yeah, like exactly.
On the thing that so what I'm saying is the CPUSA got mad at Stalin in the Third International, correct?
Yeah, because he said that he mentioned that one of them had a left-wing error and the other had the right-wing error, and that they need to work together so that they can find the right path. And that's where Stalin invented the term American opportunism, American exceptionalism, where
Okay.
he mentioned that both of them engaged in what we call American exceptionalism, where they took characteristics that were not unique to America and they assumed it belonged only to America. And the
Yeah.
thing is that, yeah, unlike Stalin was not a loser, and like you guys, he won World War II, liberated so many countries. So it was very arrogant of them to kind of not take Stalin's advice to heed, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I can't remember what brought. Oh, probably because we were talking about the second and the third international. So that was just in my head because I was watching that, and I was just like, it seemed a little like like anti. I feel like if you're gonna say that there's anti-communism propaganda, but then put down Stalin all the time, then you're
You are engaging in
contributing
the biggest, yeah.
to the anti-communist propaganda. Is what I was kind of getting at.
I mean, yeah, usually there are good critiques of Stalin, but that usually comes with people like me. Oh my god, thank you so much, Pete, Pete Dabowski. Thank you. We love you too.
Thank you,
This is
thank
so,
you.
yeah, спасибо. And I mean, when you really look at it, what you notice is that Stalin was too slow to react to the kulaks. He didn't crack down enough. So the real critiques of Stalin actually come from the left. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Or the ones that actually understand. I mean, I'm not gonna say like American communists aren't left. I mean, they're left, but there is like a whole layer of stuff that we have to get rid of in our mindset, and
Mm-hmm.
that is the exceptionalism. It is us believing that we know best for everyone because we were always told that the United States knew best for everyone. So, and
And
it's hard because it is hard to like, you have to stop and think. Like if you are talking to someone from another country and they're saying something, like you have to, that's the same thing with like even within America, you have to stop. Like if you're a white woman, like I have to stop and listen to what people are saying. I can't.
often they're usually they phrase it in a way that you don't understand. So sometimes it takes like a few times for them to repeat for you to under. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Aren't we supposed to
Yeah.
be the golden center as MLs? What America?
Mm-mm. America is probably going to be one of the last place. America. My prediction is always America and England will be one of the last places to be woke. Right?
Yeah, I mean it's he gets more into it in this piece too, and it has a lot to do with the fact that we need to have a worker solidarity, and we kind of were building that, and then we moved so far away from it that we have so much work to do here.
Yeah, what happened is that the bourgeoisie realized they needed cannon fodder for their wars, so they had to elevate the lives of some workers, and a lot of unions became like AFL-CIO became collaborationists with imperialism.
American Leninists.
Work and Leninists, yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's there is a sense like like the whole lived experience does do something for you, like it
But it's
does,
not everything. But lived
but it's
experience
not,
is
you
not
have
a
to,
substitute for reading Lenin. I'm sorry.
and I do understand that, but because you have to understand. So I can
It's
take
both.
I can take my lived experience as being a disabled person and what I went through in this medical system in the United States,
Hmm.
but I didn't quite understand everything that was happening and why it was happening until I kind of understood um
Capitalism.
capital, yeah, like until I understood the theories around it, the capitalism and the communism and all that. So
Yeah.
what once I understood that, then I can see where the errors are. I could sit here all day and yell at the system, and I'm going to be told by the system, oh, it's this part of the system, no, it's this part of the system. That's where you can easily get fooled, and then you can believe that it is the immigrants coming in taking our jobs or something like that. You know what I mean? Like
Well, right,
you
right now,
you're
this week
opening
I've
yourself up
observed.
to,
this week I've observed like the Democrats talking about cutting down gas stoves, and the Republicans talking about, oh, no way, I like my gas stoves. And then what you realize is that when you compare to the bloody military, the gas stoves is less than like 1% of the emissions of the U.S. military, and none of them are talking about cutting down the U.S. military.
No. I mean, it's all band-aids. It's you're like, okay, gas stoves do this. Oh, they cause asthma or whatever you want to say. Whatever you want to say,
All
whatever.
that is true. And
Like,
the thing is that they're no amount of removing gas stoves will change climate change. It's just a new place for people to have a disagreement. So you don't talk about where the military is and how much the military like is the biggest emissions hogger in the world.
Yeah, so they want to take your eyes off of something, and then that's where it's easy for you to fall for that. It's easy for you to go down that path and go, oh my God, we got to get rid of all the gas stoves. They're right. We got to do that, and that's going to help us. And then you're going to believe like that Band-Aid is the thing that's helping us. Whereas
gas stoves is not even a Band-Aid. It's like, I don't know, it's like a drop in the ocean.
True. So
okay. Tony, hold on. Tony said the reason why I like Chinese socialism is that I've spent. That's the reason why I like Chinese socialism, and I've spent 8 months in China. We'd love to hear about it. Some politician emulating olive oil wants to jail people for littering, huh? Olive oil. We need new. China has done that. I think socialized cheeseburgers as an American socialized cheese. I mean, cheeseburgers is already socialized. The making of cheeseburgers is socialized because one person makes the bun and then ships it over, and then the other person cooks it, and then finally somebody else assembles it and wraps it up in a package for you to get the sandwich. The problem is that the profits are of their labor is not socialized.
Exactly.
And that's what Lenin keeps on talking about. With the making of cheeseburgers is always socialized. You need 100. I don't know how many, 4 people, whatever. You need a lot of people to make. Somebody makes the bun. Somebody cooks the burger. What else is there?
Well, you had to go, if you go way back, you have to get the flour, and you have the farmer that raised the cow, and you have so it like goes all the way back to
the farmer, and then
before any production.
The milk turns into cheese. Yeah. Okay, so it's over 1,000 people making a cheeseburger. So the end
is a good 100. What for every process, there's like a person or 2 or whatever to every process.
I don't know. Okay, so let's just assume there's 100 people who are none of them are all of them are probably making like minimum wage or a little bit more, and Monsanto and McDonald's is the only one who's profiting from it.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, don't forget, is there sesame in cheeseburgers? Is there?
Well, they have it on the bun. If you get a Big Mac, it's a sesame seed bun. So
is a Big Mac a cheeseburger?
Yes. Okay. It's a burger with cheese and other stuff on it.
Okay, I thought
I would consider it a cheeseburger.
A hamburger is without cheese, then, just like lettuce, burger, and ketchup.
Yeah, whatever you want to put on it.
And bun.
Pickles. Bun.
Okay, bun, crap in between burger and bun, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and then if you put cheese in it, okay, never mind.
That's a whole bunch more processing.
Okay, hold on. What is the thing that's called where it's bun, meat, first bun?
A club meat, sandwich. Second. Oh, all right. If it's double, it's a club. And then there's like a triple layer, but usually
and onions
it's a club.
Too. Okay, onions. Okay. Hamburger with cheese, tomato slice, lettuce. Okay, so it's lettuce, onions, tomato, pickles, and ketchup.
I can tell you what's in a Big Mac if you really want to know. But
okay, what's in a Big Mac?
All right. Oh, now I can't do that. No, it's a jingle. So it's pickles, lettuce, sesame seed bun. No, wait. All right. Onions, lettuce on a sesame seed bun. So it's 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, onions, pickles, special sauce on a sesame seed bun. There you go.
Wow.
Those are all the
Okay.
ingredients.
Okay. So that's already socialized,
It's special
unfortunately.
sauce, Shireen.
Yeah. Russian dressing. What is Russian dressing? Shireen says
Um,
Russian dressing is the signature ingredient of a Big Mac.
well, yeah, it's like what they use on Reubens and stuff too.
Ah,
Russian dressing is like that orangey. I don't know how you make Russian dressing. I really don't. It's
okay.
the same as
Is it
kind of
even?
Thousand Islands, the same kind of too.
Oh, it's like mayonnaise
Yeah,
with some
yeah, it's
stuff
that
on it.
thicker.
It's like
Yeah,
mayonnaise with spices, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um. Okay. So let's get back to it. What time is it? Okay. 2048. Somebody should write this down. Okay. While the working class movement is everywhere going through what is actually same kind of preparatory school for victory over the bourgeoisie, it is achieving that development in its own way in each country. The big and advanced capitalist countries are traveling this road far more rapidly than did Bolshevism, to which history granted 15 years to prepare itself for victory as an organized political trend. In the brief space of a year, the Third International has already scored a decisive victory. It has defeated the yellow, social chauvinist Second International, which only a few months ago was incomparably stronger than the Third International. Seemed stable and powerful and enjoyed every possible support, direct and indirect, material, cabinet posts, passports, the press, and ideological from the world bourgeoisie. It is now essential that communists of every country should consciously take into account both the fundamental objectives of the struggle against left opportunism and left doctrinarism and the concrete features which this struggle assumes and must inevitably assume in each country in conformity with the specific character of its economics, politics, culture, and national composition, Ireland, etc., its colonies, religious divisions, and so on and so forth. Dissatisfaction with the Second International is felt everywhere and is spreading and growing, both because of its opportunism and because of its inability or incapacity to create a really centralized, really leading center capable of directing the international tactics of the revolutionary proletariat in its struggle for a world Soviet republic. It should be clearly realized that such a leading center can never be built up on stereotyped and mechanically equated and identical tactical rules of struggle. As long as the national and state distinctions exist among peoples and the countries, and that these will continue to exist for a long time to come, even after the dictatorship of the proletariat has been established on a worldwide scale, the unity of the international tactics the unity of the international tactics of the communist working class movement in all countries demand not the elimination of variety or the suppression of national distinctions, which is a pipe dream at present, but an application of the fundamental principles of communism, Soviet power, and the dictatorship of proletariat, which will correctly modify these principles in certain particulars, correctly adapt and apply them to national and national state distinctions, to seek out, investigate, predict, and grasp that which is nationally specific and nationally distinctive in the concrete manner in which each country should tackle a single international task. Victory over opportunism and left doctrinarism within the working class movement, the overthrow of the bourgeoisie, the establishment of a Soviet republic, and a proletarian dictatorship. Such is the basic task in the historical period that all advanced countries, and they are not alone, are going through. The chief thing, though, of course, far from everything, the chief thing has already been achieved. The vanguard of the working class has been won over, has ranged itself to the side of the Soviet government and against parliamentarism, on the side of the dictatorship of the proletariat and against bourgeoisie democracy. All efforts and all attentions which now be concentrated on the next step, which may seem from a fundamental certain viewpoint as actually less fundamental, but on the other hand is closer to a practical accomplishment of the task. That step is the search after forms of the transition or the approach to the proletarian revolution.
Right.
The proletarian, what is it?
You're getting into where, like I was bringing up, where like the proletarian vanguard has been won over ideologically, but I feel like we lost that. Like I feel like in
No.
the United States we've lost it.
Yeah, in third world countries, it's always won over
Yeah,
ideologically. In Kenya, you guys should see like some of the new promo materials the Kenyan Communist Party, like they're just very well done.
yeah.
Uh, in South America, the proletarian was. Unfortunately, I think it's because, for the lack of better word, there is a labor aristocracy in the United States. As in 1 month's salary, you can afford a washing, not 1 month's salary, but okay. So if you make 4,000 rupees a month, I don't know, it's like $50. Consumer goods are gonna cost the same as if you make, like, I don't know, how much is whatever you make in the US, which is like $1,000.
Yeah.
So there is going to be, and so what I notice is that, so it is going to be won over, and once the Soviet Union fell, all the concessions immediately rolled back to the working class. Minimum wage has not risen, so they just gave you a little bit of benefits, but not really a lot of any power. And it's sad to see that the working class was so easily de-revolutionized in the US after World War II.
Well, yeah, and I think even, the New Deal kind of squashed all that. Like the socialists were fighting to get these things. They got no recognition of fighting for those things, and then they kind of stepped back and lost their fight after, you
Yeah,
know,
I
uh,
mean, they didn't completely. Then there was McCarthy. Like, to me, it's still, it's pure racism. The fact that you could go after communists literally 2 years after Hitler, whose main, and back then, like back then you knew who what Hitler was going after because you heard his speeches. Like,
mhm.
you know what I mean. So the fact that they were able to crack down on communists who were predominantly of different races shows you the extent of racism within the US.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Yipper99 says the Peruvian government is raiding people's homes, searching for Marx, Lenin, socialist books, etc. That's horrible. Wow. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely used McCarthy. They started with the Palmer raids, so even prior to
But
McCarthy.
at least you didn't have Hitler with the concentration camps. I mean, that's the difference in 1948 is after everyone saw the concentration camps and heard the speeches where Hitler was cracking down on communists, uh, they still did not
Yeah,
let this happen.
McCarthyism comes in because they
Racism.
the reason why they grabbed some of the Nazis, because the Nazis were fine with getting rid of communism and they wanted to do that. Like,
Yeah, and I know that's, but like the fact that a lot of it has to do with racism because the majority of the communist unions were predominantly black and Latino. So, yeah.
yeah, it within the states, and then communism was in Russia and China, which are, you know,
Exactly, but then
Asian
like
states.
but then outside of the states, the propaganda is not going to work. So that's why you had to do what they did in Vietnam, Laos, Indonesia, just kill everything, just engage in
Mhm. And then
unbelievable
so
stealing.
then, because we went in and killed the communist movement, all those deaths are on communists because, they shouldn't have tried that movement.
Yeah. In Indonesia, literally millions were killed. I mean, and the CIA provided the list. They were checking off one by one. You have to go kill that illiterate farmer here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you
Yeah.
see that guy who can't read, who's can bear, you go kill him.
Yep.
And so, yeah. And the thing is that the propaganda also helps because no one's going to manufacture. You can't manufacture consent to say, "Hey, we're going to go kill a million illiterate farmers who can't afford shoes," because that's just people are. But then when you say communists, they don't seem like a million illiterate farmers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then,
And
yeah,
in
I
Vietnam,
mean,
God knows how many they killed. How many do you think they killed in Vietnam? Millions. more than in
It,
Indonesia, probably.
yeah, it was. The Vietnamese released it in 1995 as 2 million. Wait,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, as many as 2 million civilians.
Wow. Kill. Yeah. So, and like I said, it's funny how so many Western civilians were willing to take up. In Vietnam, there were some fragging and some collaboration, but then when you get past Vietnam, like there was nothing.
Mm.
Yeah. Um,
All right, what are we at? The proletariat vanguard has been won over ideologically.
the proletariat vanguard has been won over ideologically. That is the main thing. Without this, not even the first step towards victory can be made. But that is still quite a long way from the victory. Victory cannot be won without a vanguard. Victory cannot be won with the vanguard alone. To throw only the vanguard into decisive battle before the entire class, the broad masses have taken up a position either of direct support for the vanguard or at least sympathetic neutrality towards it and of precluded support for the enemy would be not merely foolish but criminal. Propaganda and agitation alone are not enough for an entire class. The broad masses of the working people, those oppressed by capital, to take up such a stand. For that, the masses must have their own political experience. Such is the fundamental law of all great revolutions, which has been confirmed with compelling force and vividness, not only in Russia but in Germany as well. To turn resolutely towards communism, it is often necessary not only for the ignorant and often illiterate masses of Russia, but also for the literate and well educated masses of Germany to realize from their own bitter experience the absolute impotence and spinelessness, the absolute helplessness and servility to the bourgeoisie, and the utter vileness of the government of the paladins of the Second International. They had to realize that the dictatorship of the extreme reactionaries, Kornilov in Russia, Kapp and Co. in Germany, is inevitable and the only alternative to the dictatorship of the proletariat.
How
The
many? How
immediate
many? How many? How much percentage of support? Like they had to think. It happened within a couple of years. Like there's a split of the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks in what 1914.
1905.
Oh, 1905. Oh, okay, so then he's saying okay, then they had the 15 years. So they okay, so
1903, sorry, go ahead.
how are they gauging like how the support of the Bolsheviks or the Mensheviks, like how were they, like the people
Well,
were
the first one is Iskra, or Lenin's newspaper.
yeah,
How many people bought each party's both of Bolsheviks and Mensheviks had the newspapers, and how
okay,
many people who that was one of the greatest ways to check is if people support like what you're
yeah, how
reading
much,
or
yeah,
yeah,
your view, not viewership, whatever, your readership, it's
readership.
and if it's
We
that's
will,
bigger then okay.
and he did it through kopecks. Like he charged people like 50 kopecks, which is 50 cents, and and then you could also get very specific because you had to like literally have a person deliver this illegal newspaper into somebody's
Hmm.
house, right?
Yeah,
So it was almost like a shadow post office that they built in order to deliver these newspapers.
yeah, 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 they had people illegally delivering the illegal newspapers, so
Yeah, fishermen actually would smuggle them over from Finland and just like drop it underneath. Like, just no, sailors would smuggle it and then just like put it in a plastic or whatever equivalent of plastic was back then underneath, like just dump it in the ocean. Fishermen would fish it out and then they would go and deliver it to people. It was pretty
yeah, yeah,
intense.
yeah, so they knew, so then that's what, like, right now I would say in America, if you're looking at the left, that too many of them are
We don't even have a official party newspaper, a party,
yeah,
let alone a party newspaper.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, people
that
are
we can.
trying. We just gotta. I think we just need to. I
Do
don't
what?
know. I don't know. I want to club people over the head and tell them to listen. No.
Well, I wish that this is the catch catch-22 is that there's so much out there. It's like we can't reach out personally to each person like walking by and say, hey, read our newspaper. It's actually like there's so much okay uh, nor a nautical underground for what did he say? The CIA uses the same tactics over and over again. Yes, SD said many birth defects in Cambodia. It is very tragic. Once you dehumanize a group of people, you can motivate the most atrocious things. Peter Dubovsky, yes. Nor a nautical underground for distribution. I say we start there. So we need to have like some sort of sea underground, like deep sea divers.
We need. Well, I mean, if we're doing it in America, we don't have to do too much nautical because we can hit.
Well, no, because most
90%
of
of
American
America.
population is actually in the coast, so we might have to do some nautical.
Yeah, true. You go up and down, and
and then go to the Great Lakes.
Yep. Drop it all around the
I mean, if you can get if you can get the coast and then into the Great Lakes, I think you get most of America. Oh, and then you have the Mississippi somehow. Wait, can you get from Chicago? How would you do it? Great Lakes can take you to Chicago, and then.
Do you know there's a waterway that can go all the way from up here, like New England and New York, and go all the way down the coast, and it's not the Atlantic Ocean, it's just like the riverway.
Oh, really? So how far down can it go?
It goes all the way down to Florida.
Like, oh, wow. Okay,
like you could literally take a boat down the riverways and get all the way down to Florida.
Okay, we'll have to do this. He says use sewage infrastructure. Yeah, we can try that. Or maybe not.
Or just push them up into people's toilets.
A great idea. That way they have toilet reading. Imagine that every day if you're going to the bathroom.
You just go in, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. Oh, it's my reading.
I can see that. Like, just imagine a fresh newspaper pops out every time you want to read it in a toilet.
We could do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
We need just plumbers.
Plumbers need to make a toilet chute so that people can just like sit and then boom, newspaper pops out. Out of every toilet, yeah.
Out of every toilet. All right.
Robert says, I think Martin Luther supposedly came up with some of these on the toilet. Maybe.
Probably. I think I do a lot of thinking, not so much in the toilet. I do a lot of thinking in the shower, or a bath.
Yeah. I have to walk up and down like an idiot outside in order for me to think.
Yeah, I pace. I do a pacing too.
Yeah, no, I have to, and then I can't see people when I'm pacing and thinking. So my neighbors seem to get really offended that I can't see them. Like I just like blank out, and they're like, "Hi," and I'm like, "Oh, hi, I didn't see you because I was thinking." And I don't know.
Because you're in a friendlier land now than New York.
Yeah. They seem to get offended, so I have to like remember. Hi. So yeah. So there's a really nice older gentleman. He's like has stories from like way back in the 1950s and stuff like that. His name is Alexei Sergeyevich. So yeah, he's my favorite neighbor because I can ask him any question. He loves talking about the Soviet Union. His daughter loves that I'm listening to him when he talks about the Soviet Union because he seems to bore the grandchildren.
Yeah. What are the views of the younger generation, the ones that were born after the Soviets?
That the Soviet times were better.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, like Russian government itself is surprising, does a lot more than the U.S. government ever does for its people.
Yeah.
But compared to the Soviet Union, it's a disappointment for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. I mean, I get the sense of that, but it's like, then you hear, the propaganda here is to pick the one that doesn't like it, or the one that like left there and came here and became a capitalist and moved up in the world, or
Yeah, you have to, in order to get featured on CNN, you have to be like, yay, fascists in Ukraine. They're fighting for freedom. We'll pretend that we can't understand a thing or see any of the tattoos. Oh my God. Miss Universe. Yesterday they had a pageant and there were three actually, but I will ignore Miss Puerto Rico. There was the Ukrainian Miss Ukraine who came as an angel costume.
Yeah,
I
she
was
was
like,
doing
good
the
job.
Liberty,
Good job
whatever.
hiding the Nazi tattoos, which
I
is
know,
good.
that's what I'm like, everyone's looking for the Nazi stuff on her.
Yeah.
You know it's in there somewhere.
I didn't see it. And then Miss USA came dressed as a moon. It was so weird.
Well, no, wasn't it the world, and then
No,
like the
was it?
stars all around? Yeah,
Can
and
you find it?
she couldn't even walk. Like she couldn't even walk. It was
Oh,
like so.
okay. Let me find her. Let me see if I can find it.
I think it was under Miss World, was it, or
No, Miss Universe.
Miss Universe? So yeah. I don't know. They have all the different ones.
What's the difference? I know it's different companies own these different franchises.
These are just all right. That's just okay. Here she is.
You found the video? Can you
Yeah.
share it with me?
Hold on.
Where?
Hold on. I'm gonna.
There were.
Hold on.
It was
I'm gonna share it.
insane.
Share.
Okay.
Screen. Let me just start it.
Here, I think you found it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think that's. Oh, maybe it is a moon.
Okay.
It could be a moon.
I found the tweet. Let me see if I can share it.
I just shared it.
Well, you shared it? Where?
Yeah. On the screen.
Where?
On the screen. It's on the screen right now.
Where?
You're not seeing it?
No, all right, let me share it.
Maybe I can't share things. I don't know why it's not letting me share things.
Okay, let me share this.
That's weird because I've been able to do it before. It's like she can't even walk under it.
USA!
Yeah, she had trouble walking. She looked like she was in a diaper.
I guess it could be a
When
moon.
Americans stepped on
I don't know.
on the USA!
That was just bizarre.
When Americans stepped on the moon in 1969, it was one small step for man. USA!
Wait a sec.
That was, yeah?
So they still want to use this whole Space Wars shit from the 60s?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't listen to it, so I didn't know they were talking about the moon thing. All right, so I thought it was the world, but okay, so it is the moon. She couldn't even freaking walk.
Because it was such a weird, big, awkward costume that was very stiff that she had trouble walking properly with it.
I don't know if Trump owns them. I know he was involved in some of them.
Yeah, he might have divested from it. I don't know. He did have some sort of financial deal with one
but
of the pageants.
I think I want to say that there was also something with him being kind of creepy to the girls, so they kind of didn't want him involved anymore or something. If I remember correctly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just friggin' ridiculous. So ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, let's continue to read this.
I think you're at the immediate objective.
The immediate objective of the class-conscious vanguard of the international working class movement and the Communist Party's groups and trends who is able to lead the broad masses who are still, for the most part, apathetic, inert, dormant, and convention-ridden to their new position, or rather to be able to lead not only their own party, but also these masses in their advance and transitions to a new position. While the historical objective, that of winning the class-conscious vanguard of the proletariat to the side of the Soviet power and the dictatorship of the working class, could have not been reached without complete ideological and political victory over opportunism and social chauvinism. The second and immediate objective, which consists in being able to lead the masses to a new position, ensuring the victory of the vanguard in the revolution, cannot be reached without the liquidation of the left doctrinarianism and without a full elimination of its errors. As long as it was, and as much as it is a question of winning and the proletariat vanguards over to the side of communism, priority went to and still goes to the propaganda work. Even propaganda circles, with all their parochial limitations, are useful under these conditions and produce good results. But when the question of practical action by the masses and of disposition of, one may so put into it, of vast armies, of the alignment of all class force in a given society for the final and decisive battle, then propagandist methods alone, the mere repetition of truths of pure communism, are of no avail. In these circumstances, one must not count in thousands like the propagandists belong to a small group who has not yet given leadership to the masses. In these circumstances, one must count in millions and tens of millions. In these circumstances, we must ask ourselves not whether we have convinced the vanguard of the revolutionary class, but whether the historically effective forces of all classes, positively of all classes in a given society without exception, are arrayed in such a way that a decisive battle is at hand, in such a way that all class forces hostile to us have become sufficiently entangled and are sufficiently at loggerheads with each other, have sufficiently weakened themselves in a struggle which is beyond their strength. This part is missing in the US. All the vacillating and unstable intermediate elements, the petty bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie Democrats, as distinct from the bourgeoisie, have sufficiently exposed themselves in the eyes of the people, have sufficiently disgraced themselves through their practical bankruptcy, definitely, and among the proletariat, the mass sentiment favoring the most determined, bold, and dedicated revolutionary action against the bourgeoisie has emerged and begun to grow vigorous. Then revolution is indeed ripe. Then, indeed, if we have correctly gauged all the conditions indicated and summarized above, and if we have chosen the right movement, our victory is assured.
Yeah.
And these are, I think, very important, all of it, as in,
yeah.
In World War II, the bourgeoisie in the Britain and bourgeoisie in Germany were hostile and fighting each other. Sorry, not World War II, World War I.
Yeah.
And then the vacillating and unstable elements had exposed, like the Kautskys had exposed themselves.
Yep.
And then the proletarian was ready. So, yeah, without, in the West, none of these conditions are here, to be honest.
Nope.
Besides number 2, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, they show themselves, but I mean, not enough people recognize that they show themselves, I guess. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we need more people to understand, like, this is why, like, when because you're blue or you're red, like when you're just that team and you're okay with anything that they do, like, we need those people to actually understand, like, these people are wrong and like they need doubt against those leaders. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a lot of people seem to think that if you have enough AOCs in Congress, you're going to have change, and you're not.
No.
You can have 535 AOCs, 430, whatever, however many AOCs you need.
435 and then in the House and 100 in the Senate. So
yeah, nothing still will fundamentally change then. It's because of the nature of who can come to power as a congressperson in a bourgeoisie republic. So I see that, like, yeah, they seem to think that, oh, she's helpless, and no, her only use is actually showing, like, how the U.S. Congress is a dictatorship of the Speaker of the House, and you can't do shit without the Speaker of the House. Yeah. So she should have been, like, posting troll bills every day to get burnt, like, to get, what do you call it, killed in committee, and using her Instagram to show that off, and she never did that. Like, and that's the thing, is that she chose opportunism, like, to further her career, get the choicest political committees over exposing the true nature of the U.S. Congress, which is
like, they think that you have to win. Like, if you put a bill forth and it doesn't go forward, they think that that's a bad thing. No, it actually, the people that are paying attention, that shows us that you're at least trying. And I feel like
that how useless Congress is. In fact, when we interviewed Mike Gravel, he actually said, "Forget about Congress; they'll never like." Even he had come into that conclusion, and he just came it through logic. Where he's like, "Congress is never going to listen to you. Forget about them," is what he said.
Yeah, and I think in the next paragraph he starts getting into, because he's talking about the Churchills and the Georges and the all of them fighting or whatever, the Hendersons all doing this stuff, but it's there are things that we can do, like there's if there's support in there if there is something that they're supporting that actually helps communism, we can't support stuff that doesn't help communism. Exactly. Does that make sense? So like if something's like so capitalistic,
that helps establish the dictatorship of a proletariat.
Yeah.
Or anti-imperialist. So it's like, even if Thomas Massey or some right-winger wants to not arm some psycho that the U.S. wants to arm, that's cool, always cool. Because you're helping way more people through anti-imperialism. Just like taking out the bullet in the neck frees up so much in the third world.
Yeah.
Okay. The differences between the Churchills and the Lloyd Georges, with insignificant national distinctions, these political types exist in all countries. On the one hand, and between the Hendersons and the Lloyd George on the other, are quite minor and unimportant from standpoint of pure abstract communism, i.e. communism that has not yet matured to the stage of practical political action by the masses. However, from the standpoint of this practical action by the masses, these differences are most important. To take due account of these differences and to determine the moment when the inevitable conflicts between these friends, which weaken and enfeeble all friends taken together, will have come to a head. And that is the concern, the task of a communist who wants to be not merely class conscious and a convinced propagandist of ideas, but a practical leader of the masses in the revolution. It is necessary to link the strictest devotion of ideas of communism with the ability to effect all necessary practical compromises, tacts, conciliatory maneuvers, zigzags, retreats, so on, in order to speed up the achievement and then the loss of political power by the Hendersons, the heroes of the Second International, if we are not to name the individual representative of petty bourgeoisie democracy who call themselves socialists. I think he means Kautsky.
Yeah.
To accelerate their inevitable bankruptcy in practice, which will enlighten the masses in the spirit of our ideas, in the direction of communism. To accelerate the inevitable friction, quarrels, conflicts, and the complete disintegration among the Hendersons, the Lloyd Georges, and the Churchills. The Mensheviks, the socialist revolutionaries, the constitutional Democrats, the monarchists, the Schneidemans, the bourgeoisie, and the Kappists. To select the proper moment when the discord among these pillars of sacrosanct private property is at its height, so that through the decisive offense the proletariat will defeat them all and capture political power. History as a whole, and history as a revolution in particular, is always richer in content, more varied, more multiform, more lively and ingenious than is imagined by even the best parties, the most class-conscious vanguards of the most advanced class. This can really be understood because even the finest vanguards express the class consciousness, will, passion, and imagination of tens of thousands, whereas at moments of great upsurge and the extortion of all human capacities, revolutions are made by the class-conscious will, passion, and imagination of tens of millions, spurred on by a most acute struggle of classes. Two very important practical conclusions follow from this. First, that in order to accomplish this task, the revolutionary class must be able to master all forms and aspects of social activity without exception, completing after the capture of political power, sometimes at great risk and with very great danger, what it did not complete before the capture of power. Second, that the revolutionary class must be prepared for the most rapid, brusque replacement of one form of another, as a movement strikes to armed struggle to whatever, immediately.
Yeah. But and it's also preparing in the sense of we do need to do the work of preparing the mutual aid,
exactly.
having ideas of what committees we'd need after, having that in place, because
well, right now the best would be like trying to. There are about 600,000 homeless people in the U.S. And the most recent, I actually learned this in today's Russian class, that there are 30. Let me actually figure this out. I'm sorry, I need to do this. How does it work? There are 33 empty properties for each homeless person in the U.S.
yeah.
So one way would be just like finding a place to put everything, and that itself shows that the working class is organized enough that you can actually like put them in one of these empty properties somehow.
But
one
you have
way
people,
just like,
there can be a group
can
of
just,
people
like,
that are
walk in
working on
and-
that. Like prior to the revolution is an ongoing thing. So it's the throw over of the government is just the start, and then you have the revolution.
the end is probably no. I mean that's actually towards the end. The beginning comes with basically building these networks.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Being
So
able
like
to
building
organize-
up. Yeah.
Being able to organize a general strike is one thing. Like the U.S. has not. In India, it just happens like every 2 weeks you can do a general strike.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
India,
We can't.
it's no big.
We don't have because we don't have the community. If we had the community, we could be like, okay, if you're going on strike and you're worried you're not going to be making money, I'm here, and I have extra food.
Strike funds.
Like I can
Exactly.
help, or I can try to go get funds for you while you're doing that. I can do this part of it, and that way, like everyone's working towards their community, and having actual safety nets in place for when we do this stuff, like actual ones that actually help people. And so like that's where we need to be at, even at a greater extent.
I agree.
Building up this mutual,
like having strike funds so that people can go indefinitely on strike. Being able to organize a general strike, which is literally can happen anytime when like in India, it's just boom, boom. I've seen like infinite number of general.
Even when they happened in the United States, it was one strike would happen, and then all of a sudden more strikers would go. It always started with this one spark, and then it turned into a general strike back in.
Definitely doesn't do that. It can definitely say tomorrow there's going to be a Bharat Bandh, boom, there will be a general strike.
Yeah.
And it's because India had the Quit India movement, where you needed to have the infrastructure to do it nationwide all the time. So in the US, you never had that. So even those kind of things, finding like the ways you'd put homeless people in. One way is just opening it up, like forcing the lock open, and just that would be adverse possession. And the other way is like crowdsourcing some kind of legal aid person to go litigate and say, hey, we're gonna this person's gonna claim some sort of right to this house. Okay, boom, that maybe even crowdsourcing sometimes these houses go on auctions. I don't know. There's
because you can get them for cheaper. A lot of times that there is in a lot of places in the United States, what they did to hurt people from doing like living in, like living generally, like having more than one generation living with you, or having a whole bunch of friends live together. They actually are doing laws to try to stop that.
How are they going to stop you from living with your grandma?
Like you can only have certain people living there, or you have to have like it's just like in certain cities and stuff they're doing. They'll
so they can like stop me from living with my grandma.
Yeah, I mean if that
how would they do that?
Well, I mean they could say she can't have anyone living in that. Like if she's renting, it could be the landlord saying no one else can live there. If or they can make laws and say this is only a single residence and you can't have other people live there. Like so they do things like that. Like that's how they stop
communities from building.
So what they did, like a lot of like, and like anarchists, but like the anarchist houses, that they would do this and they would create this, and that's how they would get rid of those anarchist houses, because it was a whole bunch of different people living together, but they could come up with these bylaws that would, you can't do that. You can't have Like you can't have more than like 2 people that are not from the same family living together or something.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. And I noticed like how much more disconnected people are from their neighbors in the US. Like all my neighbors know me now and they're like, "Oh, you're the Indian girl." And then a lot of them are very old. I like this is why I picked the building, because there are a lot of really old people who have a lot of good stories from the Soviet Union to help tell me.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a big difference. Like even I told you like I would go up to Canada in the summertime. Even there, even like in the North Shore of New Brunswick, there was much more of a community, and they lived further apart. They all had farmlands, so they were living further apart, but they all relied on each other. I mean, and granted, there's only so many families, so they're all married to each other. That was your cousin, that was your cousin. I go up there and they're all my cousins, I guess. I don't know. But like it's a different, a different type of living, and to be able to do that and to be able to rely on your neighbor when you can't do something. You know what I mean? Like that's important.
I don't know if it has revolutionary potential, but at least it'll give people a warm place to stay at the worst. I hope it has more revolutionary potential than that in creating communities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where were we?
Sorry, we're at
one will readily agree that any army which does not train to use all the weapons and all the means and methods of warfare that the enemy possesses or may possess is behaving in an unwise or even criminal manner. Yes. This applies to politics even more than it does to the art of war. In politics, it is harder to know in advance which methods of the struggle will be applicable and to our advantage in certain future conditions. Unless we learn to apply all methods of the struggle, we may suffer grave and sometimes even decisive defeat if it changes beyond our control in the position of the other classes to bring to the forefront a form of activity in which we are especially weak. However, if we learn to use all methods of struggle, victory will be certain, because we represent the interests of the really foremost and really revolutionary classes. Even if the circumstances do not permit us to make use of weapons that are most dangerous to the enemy, the weapons that deal the swiftest mortal blows. Inexperienced revolutionaries often think that legal methods of struggle are opportunist, because in this field, bourgeoisie has most frequently deceived and duped the workers, particularly in peaceful, non-revolutionary times. While illegal methods of struggle are revolutionary. That, however, is wrong. The truth is that those parties and leaders are opportunists and traitors to the working class that are unable or unwilling, do not say I can't, say I shan't, to use illegal methods of struggle in conditions such as those which prevailed, for example, during the imperialist war of 1914 to 1918, when the bourgeoisie of the freest democratic countries most brazenly and brutally deceived the workers and smothered the truth about the predatory character of the war. But revolutionaries who are incapable of combining illegal forms of struggle with every form of legal struggle are poor revolutionaries indeed. It is not difficult to be a revolutionary when the revolution has already broken out and it is in spate. When all people are joining the revolution just because they are carried away because it is the vogue. Sometimes even from careerist motives. After its victory, the proletariat has to make most strenuous efforts, even the most painful, so as to liberate itself from such pseudo-revolutionaries. It is far more difficult and far more precious to be a revolutionary when the conditions for direct, open, really revolutionary struggles do not yet exist. To be able to champion the interests of the revolution by propaganda, agitation, and organization in non-revolutionary bodies, and quite often in downright reactionary bodies, in a non-revolutionary situation among the masses who are incapable of immediately appreciating the need for revolutionary methods of action. To be able to seek, find, and correctly determine the specific path or particular turn of events that will lead the masses to the struggle, decisive in the revolutionary struggle, which is the main objective of communism in Western Europe and America today. And this is actually true, and you should read Georgy Dimitriev's what's it called? It's about forming like how to fight fascism. Fascism. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
Georgy Dimitriev's Fascism and How to Combat It, or something like that. So basically you can't get any more hostile to the working class than like living under fascist Germany. And he has a very good treatise on how to like deal, how to like try to organize there inside of like the heart of the right.
Yeah, of the fascists and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
also like I took up on the whole thing of like jumping on the bandwagon. Like you're gonna have these people that didn't prepare, didn't do the work, didn't like we're sitting there saying communism's bad, and then all of a sudden they're gonna jump on the bandwagon, and they
Yeah.
are gonna try to direct you in the wrong way.
Exactly.
Like so you need to like understand like if they're not willing to be part of the struggle, like say this happens and you're in a community and there's people in the community like they're not gonna like say there's a big strike, there's people that are not gonna be working because of the strike and stuff, so you all decide to like pull your food together, and then like one person's like, oh, I can't do that, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're gonna get those type of people, and those are the ones that you can't let them
really do anything much about.
yeah, you can't let them lead though, you can't let them
Yeah.
be
Yeah. You kind of have
taking people yeah.
Exactly. Britain is an example. We cannot tell, no one can tell in advance how soon a real proletarian revolution will flare up there, and what immediate cause will serve to rouse, kindle, and impel into the struggle the very wide masses who are still dormant. Hence, it is our duty to carry on all our preparatory work in such a way as to be well shod on all 4 feet, as the late Plekhanov, when he was a Marxist and revolutionary, was fond of saying. It is possible. Actually, there's a really funny story where it was during the first Congress where Plekhanov calls somebody an ass, like during the Congress, and then he's a little too loud when he calls him an ass, and then like that causes like a. I think I think it's Plekhanov calling Martov an ass. Like he calls during the very first Bolshevik like meeting in. First, they get kicked out of Belgium because they go too far with the secrecy and they're out and they have to go to London or something. There, Plekhanov whispers and calls one of the speakers an ass, but then everyone hears it because
Overheard
he's too
it, yeah.
loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he creates like it creates a big fight. And Lenin was like, maybe Plekhanov should have been a little delicate when he mentioned the speaker's
Is it
likeness.
are the Russians known for their whisper too? Like the Irish whisper?
Yeah. And somebody showed okay, no more Pope. This is the one. Exactly. We will put this in the show description. Exactly.
Okay.
Good job. Yeah. No, I just remember it was really funny because it caused a split because, like I said, he was a little too loud when he calls him and Lenin should have like maybe Plekhanov should have kept comparing the speaker's likeliness to for hooked friends to a minimum or something like that. He said something like that. Like he doesn't say that he called him an ass, but that's what my guess is that he probably like what else could he have called him besides an ass?
I don't know, kidding.
Exactly. No, I just remember that it caused a rift in the party there. It is possible that the breach will be forced, the ice broken by the parliamentary crisis or by the crisis arising from colonial and imperialist contradictions, which are hopelessly entangled, and I forgot, and are becoming increasingly painful and acute, or perhaps by the third cause. And it's nice that he considers all the colonies part of Britain too. So I think when he means Britain, he just doesn't mean the stupid island. He meant like every colony that Britain had.
Yeah, he's like talking like Ireland and Scotland
India,
being part of it. India.
I mean,
yeah. Oh, all right.
Egypt,
So Africa. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but by Britain he doesn't mean the stupid island. I think he means like
everyone.
Whatever.
Well, because he does get into, and I made a note on that he talks about. Because he's saying here, well, maybe it will happen because the parliamentary does something so shitty that
arising from colonial and imperialist contradictions.
But then he goes on to say like, oh, say it could come from Ireland, like it could be the Irish doing their rise up, and then that is what sets it all off.
Yeah. I mean, it almost happened in 1946 with the Great Indian Naval Mutiny. That's why India, look, a lot of people think it was because of Gandhi. Yeah. it was because of the Great Indian Naval Mutiny that happened in 1946, where white British soldiers started to join in, and like the British Empire was this close in breaking. If they had lost like all their white soldiers, boom, there would have been nothing. And that's when they were like, okay, oops, psych, India independence, we're gonna move it forward a few like years.
Yeah.
Ha. Okay, now you guys are happy, go away. That's kind of what happened basically. And we did an episode. You remember? Were you there for the interview with Pramod Kapoor?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it
so
was.
it's like this, and so it came very close sometimes. So it might come again. I forgot where.
We were discussing.
Let us not. Okay. Third cause. We are not discussing the kind of struggle that will determine the fate of the proletarian revolution in Great Britain. No communist has any doubt on that score. For all of us, this is a far-gone conclusion. What we are discussing is the immediate cause that will bring into motion the now proletarian masses that will lead them right up to the revolution. Let us not forget that in the French bourgeoisie republic, for example, in a situation which, from both the international and national viewpoints, there was 100 times less revolutionary than it is today. Who has low battery?
Huh? You or me?
I probably have low battery. Okay. Let us not forget that, for example, which from both the international and the national viewpoints was 100 times less revolutionary than it is today. Such an unexpected petty cause as one of the many thousands of fraudulent machinations of the reactionary military caste, the Dreyfus case, was enough to bring people to the brink of civil war. In Great Britain, the communists... Okay, I'm running out of battery, so... hold on. Not on my speaker, but on my headset.
Okay.
No, on my headset. I'm running out of battery, so let me just turn that off. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay. I hope the audience doesn't hear an echo, but oh well. In Great Britain, the communists should constantly and unremittingly and unswervingly utilize parliamentary elections and all the vicissitudes of Irish, colonial, and world imperialist policies of the British government and all other fields, spheres, and public aspects of public life, and work in all of them in a new way, in a communist way, in the spirit of the Third and not the Second International. Here he means like think about India and Africa, etc., all the horrible colonies they had back then. They had a lot.
Yeah, they did.
That's why whenever the West says the rules-based international order, I'm like, it's bullshit. Because in 1945, guess which kind? Like when you don't have India, when you don't have China, when you don't have any country in Africa, what kind of international rules-based order is that? That's just bullshit, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have China alone is...
and India.
China and India right there is what, a third of the population of the world or something like that?
And then you don't have like Pakistan, Indonesia, the other highly popular. There's a place in Myanmar where if you draw a 3,000 kilometer radius circle, more people live within that circle than outside of it. I forgot the exact city in Myanmar, but you have none of these countries participating in this international rules-based order, and you're like, this is bullshit. You just have U.S., Britain, and Vichy France. Yeah. And then they're like, international rules-based order. Bullshit.
The fuckus.
Yeah, exactly. The fuckus alliance. And you're like, yeah, that's bullshit. That's not you didn't have Vietnam. Like all the highly populated countries that you draw a line from whatever that circle is. When you don't have that, it's like, go away. You have like 4 people. I don't know. And I have neither the time nor the space here to describe the Russian Bolshevik method of participation in parliamentary elections in the parliamentary struggle. I can, however, assure foreign communists that they're quite unlike the usual West European parliamentary campaigns. From this, the conclusion is often drawn. Well, that was in Russia. In our country, parliamentarian is different. This is a false conclusion. Communists adherent to the Third International in all countries exist for the purpose of changing all along the lines in all spheres of life the old socialist, trade unionist, syndicalist, parliamentary type of work into a new type of work, communist. In Russia, too, there was always an abundance of opportunism, purely bourgeoisie sharp practices, and capitalist rigging in elections. In Western Europe and in America, the communists must learn to create a new, uncustomary, non-opportunist, non-careerist parliamentarianism. The communist parties must issue their slogans. True proletarians, with the help of the unorganized, downtrodden poor, should distribute leaflets, canvass workers' houses and cottages of the rural proletarians and peasants in remote village. Fortunately, there are many times fewer remote villages in Europe than in Russia and Britain. The number is very small. And so I remember when Emma, what's her name? Emma, Sam Cedar's sidekick. Emma, her last name is.
Oh, Vigeland. Vigeland?
Yeah,
Right?
Emma Vigeland. Yeah, she was like, the reason why the US has not had a revolution is because it's geographically so big. And I'm like, Russia? China? What are you thinking? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Russia is like the continental, like a US and Canada dipped on its side. And China is about as big. If you ignore Alaska, China is about the same size as the US, ignoring Alaska.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but the whole thing is like, yeah, I get that we have a lot of rural part right in the middle, but we
Not
also
more than China or Russia.
no, not at all. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, but like, yeah,
A lot of that's often people give the USA is such a big country as like such an excuse, and it's like, Russia is much more sparsely populated. Like I said, it's literally flipping US, Canada, and Mexico on its side is about the size of Russia,
Yeah.
I think. Let's see. Fortunately, they should go into public houses, penetrate into unions, societies, and chance gatherings of the common people, and speak to the people not in learned or very parliamentary language. They should not at all strive to get seats in parliament, but should everywhere try to get people to think and draw masses into the struggle. To take the bourgeoisie at its word and utilize the machinery it has set up, the elections it has appointed, and the appeals it has made to the people. They should try to explain to the people what Bolshevism is in a way that was never possible under bourgeoisie rules outside of election times, exclusive of a number of big strikes when in Russia a similar apparatus for widespread popular agitation was even more intensely. It worked even more intensely. It is very difficult to do this in Western Europe and extremely difficult in America, but it can and must be done. For the objectives of communism cannot be achieved without effort. We must work to accomplish practical tasks, even more varied and even more closely connected with all branches of social life, winning branch after branch and sphere after sphere from the bourgeoisie. In Great Britain, further the work of the propaganda agitation organization among the armed forces and among the oppressed and underprivileged nationalities in their own state. The Ireland, the colonies must also be tackled in a new fashion. One that is not socialist but communist, not reformist but revolutionary. That is because in the era of imperialism in general, and especially today after a war that was a sore trial to the people and has quickly opened their eyes to the truth, the fact that tens of millions were killed and maimed for the sole purpose of deciding whether the British or the German robbers should plunder the largest number of countries. All these spheres of social life are heavily charged with inflammable material and are creating numerous causes of conflicts, crisis, and an intensification of class struggle. We do not and cannot know which spark of all the innumerable sparks that are flying about in all countries as a result of the world economic and political crisis will kindle the conflagration. In the sense of raising up the new masses, we must therefore, with our new and communist principles, set to work to stir all and sundry, even the oldest and mustiest and seemingly hopeless spheres. For otherwise we will not be able to cope with our task. We shall not be comprehensively prepared, shall not be in possession of all the weapons, and shall not prepare ourselves either to gain victory over all the bourgeoisie, which arranged all aspects of social life and has now disarranged them in its bourgeoisie fashion, or to bring about the impending communist reorganization of every sphere of life following that victory.
Yep.
When
So,
the
like,
Russian, go ahead.
my note on that was that's where, like, I was talking about, the Ireland. If something happened in Ireland and they rose up, you could that could be a spark. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, he's saying that you have to kind of fan the
Yeah.
flames.
Yeah, exactly. Cobra Commander says America is basically 200 million people shoved in a tiny snuggy hurricane east coast. It's a very tiny place in the world. Yeah, you're right. A lot of people are between New York and
Mhm.
there are so many people shoved between basically New York and Massachusetts.
Yep. And then California. That's
Yeah,
your two main places.
exactly. Like California is about 50 million, which is like bigger than a lot of countries in this world.
Yep.
Mhm. There's Texas too, but we'll ignore Texas for a while.
I'm
Texas is now,
side-eyeing Texas.
Texas is technically more populated than New York, but I don't know. I just want to ignore it just because I don't know why I want to ignore it.
It's just easier that way.
Yeah, it's just easier to deal with pretending that. Maybe we can give it back to Mexico. Can we give it back to Mexico?
I feel bad giving it to Mexico at the state it's in right now, but I don't know. I don't know.
Florida be given to Cuba. I think Florida should be given to Cuba just for justice to be served.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They should just have Cuba.
Well,
I mean, Cuba should just have Florida.
You know about the broken arrows, right? There are 7 or 8 nuclear weapons that the U.S. government just lost somewhere, and I swear to God, they lost one off the coast of Florida, and I can so see this happening, an apocalypse where like some dude in Florida like goes diving and he accidentally nukes. No, like Florida is the most like place where that broken arrow can create a big problem, right?
Yeah. Probably. That'd
Yeah,
be
because there's one in South Carolina. I think it's gonna be okay. But Florida, I swear, some old guy is gonna just trip over it and be like, "Yo, what's this button?" Boom.
And you know what they would do though? They would say that it was the Russians.
Yeah, but there are 6 broken arrow weapons somewhere that no one knows where they are.
Floating around somewhere.
Yeah, one is in South Carolina. One is off the coast of Florida. Yeah. When the Russian cadets and the Kerensky began to fiercely hound the Bolsheviks, especially since April 1917, the more particularly in June and July 1917, they overdid things. Millions of copies of bourgeoisie papers clamoring in every key against the Bolsheviks helped the masses make an appraisal of Bolshevism. Apart from the newspapers, all public life was full of discussions about Bolshevism as a result of the bourgeoisie's zeal. Today, the millionaires of all countries are behaving on an international scale in a way that deserve our heartiest thanks. They are hounding Bolshevism with the same zeal as Kerensky and company did. They too are overdoing things and helping us just as Kerensky's did. When the French bourgeoisie makes Bolshevism the central issue in the elections and accuses the comparatively moderating or vacillating socialists of being Bolsheviks, and when the American bourgeoisie, which has completely lost its head, seizes thousands and thousands of people on suspicion of Bolshevism, it creates an atmosphere of panic and broadcasts stories of Bolshevik plots. When, despite all its wisdom and experience, the British bourgeoisie, the most solid in the world, makes the incredible blunder, founds richly endowed anti-Bolshevik societies, and creates special literature on Bolshevism and recruits an extra number of scientists, agitators, and clergymen to combat it, we must salute and thank the capitalists. They are working for us. They are helping us to get the masses interested in the essence and significance of Bolshevism, and they cannot do otherwise, for they have already failed to ignore Bolshevism and stifle it. This kind of reminds me of Russiagate, actually.
Yeah. Can I tell you a funny story that this reminds me of?
Yeah.
My father was drafted into the Army after he finished engineering at Northeastern. So he went in and they, of course, put him into, it wasn't the Army Corps of Engineers. It was something like that, something with that. Like, I know he worked with chemicals and stuff like that too, but whatever. He had a hard time getting passed because we had a communist in our family, so they didn't let him do everything. But one of the things, so they're on the base down in Maryland, and they formed a club, a bunch of them. Like, so these were like old. It was like they were all like older, like in their young 20s, young to mid 20s. These were draftees, but they were ones that had already gone through college, and so they did this fuck the army, FTA, but they used the Latin letters. So, and they made a stamp and they put it up, and the and the the higher ups in the army were all convinced that a Chinese communist person was coming on base and agitating by putting these stamps up that were fuck the army, but it was like in Roman, like in Latin letters. And
So
they literally
what did FTA Latin letters look like?
The F is hold on.
Okay. In the meanwhile, Ruxella says, I used to live in a region that was its own republic. We used to be like the Donbass region. That's pretty cool. You should have stayed your own republic. Joining the bigger Texas was a mistake.
Why isn't it coming up here? I think it's more, it's like it's a phi, right? Phi, is it a phi?
So, okay, I see. F, theta. You mean Greek letters?
Theta. Greek letters, sorry. I'm an idiot. Greek letters.
Yeah, okay. So it's phi, theta, alpha.
Yeah, and so that's what they were putting around, but for some reason they were convinced, like they were called, like all the draftees had to come into this group, and they were like saying how like the people were telling them the not a general, I don't know why I can't think of the stupid ranks of the army right now, but they're there and they're saying, like, a colonel was there, like, we think you have to be very vigilant because we think like these Chinese communists are coming on base and doing this and agitating.
To do what? To agitate what?
And they're like, it's us. So yeah, all right. I just had to tell you that funny story because
that's hilarious. Like, seriously, like, why would they come to it? Like, at least they should use the useful base where they're like doing biomedical research or something.
Well, no, that's where they were doing that's where they did the acid tests. That's where they came up with. Yeah,
that was a justifiable paranoia because they were saying
they were doing all. That's where they did the acid test on the people.
Okay. At least it was useful. Okay.
They developed what's the stuff they sprayed over Vietnam? Agent Orange. They developed that. Of course, they had.
Okay.
They were using it to de-weed stuff too around the base, and of course it was.
They sprayed Agent Orange on themselves.
They were Agent Oranging themselves, but of course it was, my father said it was always a black soldier that they had spray the stuff.
Oh, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't realize they were Agent Orange themselves. Okay. Mm-hmm. But hopefully some evil people got some sort of evil diseases.
They Agent Orange the Navy because the Navy would be off the base of Vietnam and the winds, and there's such a top layer. The Agent Orange wasn't going down into it. It was sitting on top of the trees and then blowing at night over to the Navy. So they'd wake up with powder all over the ship.
Crazy.
So we were Agent Oranging our own people. Yes.
Okay. That's crazy. Okay. And like I said, this reminds me of Russia. Okay. At the same time, the bourgeoisie sees practically only one aspect of Bolshevism: insurrection, violence, and terror. Exactly. Therefore, it strives to prepare itself for resistance and opposition primarily in this field. It is possible that in certain instances, in certain countries, and for brief periods, it will succeed in this. We must reckon with such an eventuality, and that we have absolutely nothing to fear if it does succeed. Communism is emerging in positively every sphere of public life. It begins to be seen literally on all sides. The contagion, to use the favorite metaphor of the bourgeoisie and the bourgeoisie police, one most to their liking, has thoroughly penetrated the organism and has completely permeated it. If special efforts are made to block one of the tendrils, the contagion will find another one, sometimes very unexpectedly. Life will assert itself. Let the bourgeoisie rave, work itself into a frenzy, go to extreme, commit follies, take vengeance on the Bolsheviks in advance, endeavor to kill off, as in India, Hungary, Germany, more hundreds, thousands, and hundreds of thousands of yesterday's and tomorrow's Bolsheviks. In acting thus, the bourgeoisie is acting as all historically doomed classes have done. Communists should know that in any case, the future belongs to them. Therefore, we can and must combine the most intense passion in the greatest revolutionary struggle. With the coolest and most sober appraisal of the frenzied ravings of the bourgeoisie. This kind of reminds me of how the bourgeoisie like kind of raved and ranted and got rid of like some socialism in some small European countries, but then they couldn't really do anything in China, which has a population of like every European country that they got rid of socialism combined.
Yeah.
Times 5.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I don't know how many people are there in like, because the most populated European countries are in Western Europe. So when you add up all the Iron Wall countries, I still think China
Oh
makes
yeah,
up 10 times
yeah,
people.
way much more.
So they couldn't get rid of, and that's kind of like, this is what he. So even if they did have, after some ranting and raving, they have some kind of what is it? Some kind of success, they still can't get rid of the biggest contagion.
Yeah,
which was
they only got rid of 25%.
Less than that.
And yeah, like you said, it's probably less than that because if you take Russia and well, I mean now they got rid of Russia, but
Yeah.
at that
They
time,
eliminated
at
themselves.
yeah, yep.
I mean, because they were so insane about Russia that they literally like. There was a point in 1999 where the Putin was like the West. Oh, we need the West. The West needs us. We want to be like now. He just calls them the devil and Satan worshippers. Like he was not always like this.
Yeah, I mean, Yeltsin picked Putin, right? Yeltsin.
Not really. I feel like I'm still. If I ever get a chance to interview Putin, that's the one question I'm going to ask. What did you say to Yeltsin to make him resign? That so if you one I'm gonna subtitle. I have to subtitle this, but it's hilarious. Like it was, I think I can't remember if it's 99 or 2000, but Yeltsin looks like it's in a hostage video and somebody's holding a gun to his head, and he's like, dear Russians, Happy New Year. I resign as your president. And so then Putin came to power, but I'm always curious what he said to him to get him to do that. But then, like I said, at the West, like in 1999, Putin was not calling the West like satanic devils. He was like saying that we need the West. The West needs us. We need to work on like a mutual friendship agreement where we can have like that was what he was. And now he just. But then they acted crazier and crazier and alienated him to the point where he's literally calling them satanic devils.
Yeah, I mean it's so. I mean, what you're saying is he had tried to work with the West, and the West was not even going to have. So we can't even figure out that they're not the Soviets anymore. Like that's like how are we going into that? You know, honestly, like with them.
Well, because I think the West knows that the Soviet Union was destroyed in the most cruel way against the will of the people. So they know that if you're not always like shooting the imperial boot, just any breath, it's like ready to come. Like if you look at who wants the Soviet Union back, Russia is like actually less. So when you go to like other countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, like 86% of Azerbaijan want it back. 90% of Armenia wants it back. And the only way it's being done is like literally through imperial like guns pointed at people. Yeah. So they know that. And that's why because in their heart, they know that it like the minute they let it through, like it's coming back. So it's their guilt, in my opinion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. World peace isn't good for business.
Correct.
That is totally correct, except for if we actually were living in a socialistic world, then we wouldn't need war. Not to the extent that we have it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we need to get in order for there to be world peace. We have to get rid of the military-industrial complex.
Cobra saying that's a gray area for me. The government ain't Soviet, but everyone around 60 were Soviets and still remember.
Okay, so I can address this. The government is not Soviet, but everyone, most people who are in government because they were like the Soviet Union. They got elected into government because they have to say, like, they were one of the people who were like, the Soviet Union was destroyed against my will. So the government has a lot of people who like Sergei Shoigu, who's the defense minister, was talking about how he was like in the 1990s, the only thing he was obsessed with was like trying to recreate the Soviet Union. Sergei Lavrov talks about how he was done against his will. Like, so majority of the government, the governments right now, a lot of them have grappled with how to recreate the Soviet Union far more than we have. Like, it's been haunting them for the past 30 years.
Yeah, I'm sure it has to be.
So for them, it's not, that's they're obviously like, they understand. I guess I don't know how to explain it. But
what are the conditions that are stopping them from moving back to that? Like what?
The color revolutions in Azerbaijan, Armenia, Ukraine, Maidan, Ukraine, Georgia. So basically, it's not Russia, to be honest. They haven't been. It's basically the West doing color revolutions. To all the other Soviet, and when they do a color revolution, what happens is that the hostile government comes and lets NATO come in, put their troops and put their weapons and so on.
Okay.
And,
so it's more of a safety feature for them. Like if they outright just today said, okay, we're going to go back to the Soviet, we're going to go back to that, then NATO would be
even worse. Like now,
like fighting them more.
Yeah, they have prioritized keeping Russia stable over what happens to Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan or Tajikistan. And it's, I mean, Tajikistan is one of the saddest things. Right after the Afghan war, they had a 5-year civil war where the West armed these psychotic, the scum of the earth, like the same kind of people they armed in Bosnia or in Syria, like the moderate rebels is a great word. Yeah. They tortured these people. It was horrible. I mean, all these innocents, like it was just really horrible. Like all these poor Soviets who were Muslim were just like, it was like, we're like overtaken by these complete psychos, like the moderate rebels you get wherever the West goes. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like now you have them in Syria, the same people. So right now they've prioritized keeping Russia stable over anything else, in my opinion.
Okay. All right.
And I mean, to be honest, Russia has the most people, so it's a hard choice. And the saddest thing is Russian people who are ethnically Russian in a lot of these other countries, like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. Latvia literally does not consider 45% of its population who are ethnically Russian to be humans. They're stateless. They're, I don't know. What does it mean? Like, can you explain? Stateless is where you're just not a human. You don't. It's kind of like being undocumented in the U.S. But much worse because you were born and raised there. It's like being
you have nowhere. Like at least a person that's undocumented in the U.S. can
go back to a country,
a home. I mean, not a great home, but they have a home,
a country,
where this is, you are not a person of any state. You have no home. Like you have nothing.
Yeah, nothing. So yeah, it's very horrific what the West has done. But ultimately, it's these color revolutions that any time, like Ukraine, when they rejected the treaty with the West for Russia's better treaty, boom, Maidan happened. The civil war happened.
Yep.
So that's the biggest impediment, in my opinion, of course. But yeah, that's also the biggest impediment to the African Union is the West, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, what they did in Libya is just unreal.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because that's what Libya was pushing for, was an African Union. And
yeah. they were going to have like get rid of the dollar hegemony. There was so many, like they were going to build all this infrastructure. Like there were really good plans for Africa, and the West just it's unforgivable what they did in Libya.
Truly.
Yeah, they took Africa's most wealthiest, best, most prosperous country, which was a direct democracy, and turned it into a slave state. Yeah, and then she cackled like a maniac. Like, okay, sorry, I get okay. The hundreds of communists should know. Okay, we've done this. That which happens to such leaders of the second Hungary? Okay, no. Sorry, I missed it. India. More than hundreds. In acting thus, the bourgeoisie is acting as all historically doomed classes have done. Communists should know that in any case, the future belongs to them. Therefore, we can and must combine the most intense passion in the greatest revolutionary struggle with the coolest and most sober appraisal of frenzied ravings of the bourgeoisie. The Russian Revolution was cruelly defeated in 1905. The Russian Bolsheviks were defeated in July 1917. Over 15,000 German communists were killed as a result of wily provocation and cunning maneuvers by the Schneidermans and the Noske, who were working hand in glove with the bourgeoisie and the monarchists in general. White terror is raging in Finland and Hungary. But in all cases, in all countries, communism is becoming steeled and is growing. Its roots are so deep that persecution does not weaken or debilitate it. It only strengthens it. Only one thing is lacking to enable us to march forward more confidently and firmly to victory, namely the universal and thorough awareness of all communists in all countries of the necessity to display the utmost flexibility in their tactics. The communist movement, which is developing magnificently, now lacks, especially in the advanced country, this awareness and the ability to apply it in practice. That which happened to such leaders of this Second International, which such highly erudite Marxists devoted to socialism, such as Kautsky, Otto Bauer, and others, could and should provide a useful lesson. They fully appreciated the need for flexible tactics. They themselves learned Marxist dialectic and have taught it to others. And much of what they have done in this field will also socialist literature. However, in the application of this dialectic,
You're breaking up a little.
However, in the application of this dialectic, they committed such an error or proved to be so undialectical in practice, so incapable of taking into account the rapid change of forms and the rapid acquisition of new content by the old forms, that their fate is not much more enviable than that of Hindeman, Guste, and Plekhanov.
I made a note here. I made a note here, like it's like they wanted to bend way too much and forgetting that the people, like, not listening to the people, like, and they're going to bend towards the social democracy or keeping under capitalism or something like that.
Exactly. You only bend at the need to the people and not the power.
Yeah, and that you are going to have to accept a little, you might have to accept a little bit of suffer for rapid changes. Like, you're used to doing one thing and then, okay, that's not the thing you're going to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you do have to bend to that part of it. Like, you have to understand it's not going to be perfect. Like, there's going to be things that change, but you don't have to bend to the capitalists.
Yeah, you don't have to authorize World War I, for example, like Kautsky did.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to say that Russia oppresses its citizens a lot less than... I have not seen a single police patrol this area ever. I can never say this. Like, the only places I see policemen is literally at, like, places where you can... like, big crowded. Like, on New Year's Eve is when I saw policemen, literally. I have not... I don't know. Yeah, there's not... It does not oppress people that much. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, that was pretty insane. I think they wanted to do it in like front of Eastern Orthodox churches, which are even more conservative than Catholic churches. Yeah,
I don't understand that. That is not like, I get protesting the church. Like, I like Sinead O'Connor ripping the picture of the Pope.
that's fine.
That is
But
a good
yeah,
protest.
but if somebody wants to have an orgy in the Vatican, I'm going to say no. That's ridiculous.
That's like not
Too far.
helpful.
Not acceptable.
I mean, if you want to have one, but I mean, it's not helping the revolution.
No. Russia is not trying to bring back communism, but the people, because socialism was destroyed against the will of the people, once there is a big force pushing, how do I explain? There's a big popular force always pushing in that direction, if that makes sense. Like Russia is a huge country, right? There's one force coming here, one force coming here. So, but the biggest force that the government has to contain is the force that wants to just try to recreate the Soviet Union right now.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sure, but still, it's kind of, I mean, it serves no purpose and it's just offending a lot of elderly Italian ladies.
Oh,
And
having
Spanish ladies.
it's like, but I see, for me, like, I understand like the hierarchy of the church and stuff, but some people really rely on, I get if you don't believe in God or you don't believe in this stuff, but some people, they find comfort in that, and I don't, I wouldn't deny them that. Like, if they're just ordinary people not pushing their religion on you, then
it's like some old lady going to mass and eating like those what do you call those church cookies?
Crucifix.
The church cookies.
No, not the crucifix. The commune. It's the commune.
Commune?
Yeah,
those are what the cookies are called, communes? Okay.
Yeah, whatever they are. I don't know. The little, they come in a
white
packs.
cookies.
I know that. My mother was a
church cookie hander-outer?
She was a church cookie hander-outer. Yeah, she was one of the first women in.
Okay, like I said, because it's a
wafers.
Yeah,
I'm such a bad lapsed Catholic.
Eucharist. Okay.
Eucharist.
Okay, so the government.
I should have remembered that.
Russia has many different forces. It's not blah homogenous. The one force it has is people who think that people who are upset, people who want to go back to the Soviet Union, and that's a big force. So when the other side of this is people who want to appease imperialism or capitalism. And the problem with this fight is that you have the boot of the, let me go, boot, I am running out of like organs. Okay. So you have the boot of the West pushing this force here, right? Once this boot's lifted, this is going to win. Does that make sense? Let me try it.
I just want to see you get into a pretzel again. Do it again. No, it makes sense. Yes, it makes sense.
Okay, so Russia has a big force pushing left where they want to recreate socialism, but then there's another force that wants that's aligned with the West that's pushing here.
Yeah,
but it's not a fair fight because there's a boot of the West pushing this side over, and so this is why it's kind of like here. Once you lift the boot, it just goes.
Yeah. Like the West created the oligarchs that are in Russia that they complain about.
Exactly. and also, yeah. Communion wafers. You're actually eating literally? Really?
Yeah, it's supposed to be the body of Christ. So when you drink the wine, it's the blood of Christ. And you eat the wafer, it's the body of Christ.
Okay. So that's what I'm trying to say is that those are the forces, and with every and it's the same because in Africa also the problem, the boot is bigger and bigger, and because nobody's going to be like, I want my children to work in capitalism in Africa literally means I want my children to work as slaves in mines. No one's going to be like that. So it has to be put down by immense literal, like in the Democratic Republic of Congo, literally the mines have armed guards. Who are they guarding? Nobody's going to come and rob a mine because it's in the middle of nowhere. There's no roads. But why are there armed guards?
To keep the workers there. Yep.
Yeah.
Keep the workers in line.
Exactly.
I mean, they do that in the West. They hire security in tech buildings and like they have security against their own employees, like in Walmarts and stuff like that. They have, they hire these people to watch you as a worker, not watch the people shoplifting, watch you as a worker.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. What happened to, undialectical, so incapable of taking into account the rapid change of forms that their fate. Okay. The principal reason for their bankruptcy was that they were hypnotized by the definite form of growth of the working class movement and socialism, and forgot all but about the one-sidedness of that form, and were afraid to see the breakup which objective conditions made inevitable, and continued to repeat simple and at first glance incontestable axioms that had been learned by rote, like 3 is more than 2. But politics is more like algebra than arithmetic. It is in reality
You're breaking a little.
In reality, all forms of the socialist movement have acquired a new content and consequently a new symbol, the minus sign, which appears in front of all figures. Our wiseacres, however, have stubbornly continued and still continue to persuade themselves that -3 is more than -2. This is very smart. Okay. We must see to it that communists do not make a similar mistake, only that in the opposite sense, or rather we must see to it that a similar mistake is only made in the opposite sense by the left communists, is corrected as soon as possible, eliminated as rapidly and painlessly as possible. It is not only right doctrinarianism that is erroneous, left doctrinarianism erroneous too. Of course, the mistake of left doctrinarianism in communism is at least present 1,000 times less dangerous and less significant than that of right doctrinarianism. Social chauvinism and Kautskyism, obviously, because the German socialists, basically, they just got hunted down and killed for being left doctrinaires. Yeah. Kautsky started World War I.
Yeah.
But after all, but after all, it is due to the fact that left communism is only a very young trend that is, and it is only coming into being. It is only for this reason that under certain conditions, the disease can be easily eradicated, and we must set to work the utmost energy to eradicate it. The old forms burst asunder, for it turned out that the new content, anti-proletarian and reactionary, had attained an inordinate development. From the standpoint of development of the international communism, our work has such a durable and powerful content for Soviet power, and it must end the dictatorship of the proletariat, that it can and must manifest itself in any form, both new and old. It can and must regenerate, conquer, and subjugate all forms, not only the new, but also the old, for the purpose of reconciling itself with the old, but for the purpose of making all and every form, the new and old, a weapon for the complete and irrevocable victory of communism. Communists must exert every effort to direct the working class movement and the social development in general alongside the straightest and shortest road to the victory of the Soviet power and the dictatorship of the proletariat on a worldwide scale. It is an incontestable truth. But it is enough to take one step a little further, a step that a step that might seem to be in the same direction, and truth turns into error. We have only to say, as the British and German left communists do, that we recognize only one road, only the direct road, and that we will not permit tacking, conciliatory maneuvers, and compromising. And it will be a mistake which it may cause, and in part has already caused, in causing the very grave prejudices to communism.
I was thinking, like, so like the fact that we had the New Deal, you know what I mean? Like it shut up a lot of people because it was Band-Aids give to people. And then so if you don't keep pushing for better, like when they say, like when a Democrat tells you, well, you're going to get this, why aren't you happy with getting, 1,400 of your 2,000 or something like that? But
you should be like, well, we want, the final goal should always be a dictatorship of the proletariat, and anything less than that is a disappointment.
You got to keep fighting. You got to keep fighting and fighting and fighting. And even if they're giving you those concessions, you got to say, no, we need better. You can't just go, Oh, okay. That's all right. Like now some people only pay $35 for insulin,
Okay.
where no one should be paying anything for insulin.
By the way, follow Lenin tweets. He might have that thread in the future. Right, Janet?
Yes.
Yeah. Lenin underscore tweets is our official Twitter account. Follow him and we'll revive it. It's been
We
hard
gotta
to keep
revive
up.
it, yeah.
We will revive it and he might have this thread in the future.
All right.
Okay. The communists must extend every effort to direct the working class movement and the social development in general along the straightest, shortest victory road to the victory of the Soviet power and the dictatorship of the proletariat on a worldwide scale. It is an incontestable truth. But it is enough to take one little step farther, a step that might be in the same. No. We already did this. What? Where?
You're near the
Right,
end.
Doctor? Okay.
Left doctrinism persists in the unconditional repudiation.
Oh, okay. Left persists in the unconditional repudiation of certain old forms, failing to see that the new content is forcing its way through all sundry forms, and that it is our duty as communists to master all forms and learn how, with the maximum rapidity, and supplement one form with another, to substitute one for another, and to adapt our tactics to any such change that it does not come from our class or from our efforts. World revolution has been so powerfully stimulated and accelerated by the horrors and vileness and the abominations of the world imperialist war and by the hopelessness of the situation created by it. This revolution is developing in scope and depth with such splendid rapidity, with such a wonderful variety of changing forms, with such an instructive, practical refutation of all doctrinarism that every reason to hope for a rapid, complete recovery of the international communist movement from the infantile disorder of left-wing communism. April 27th, 1920.
Yeah. I was thinking that you could have, like, Matt read a lot of Kotsky for that piece, right? He should set up an account and be Kotsky, and then we could have like fights.
Yeah.
We could have fights online. That'd be fun.
We'll try something. Okay. Matt also set up a Stalin account.
Oh, did he?
Tweets of Steel.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then somebody, actually, it's one of our audience members from Panama. Like he's right in that Manuel Noriega gets defamed a lot. Like kind of list like how Saddam Hussein got really defamed in the press. Like incubator babe, they lie so much. Like he set up like a Manuel Noriega Instagram where he just puts quotes of Manuel Noriega too.
Did Deanna Troy of
Pair character exaggeratedly stretching his arm forward after a cup of coffee. Like that?
No, forward.
Like this?
Yes, offering a cup of coffee.
Wait. What's a peer character?
I don't know. I figure a peer. I don't know. We should have a Bernstein account for the fights.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, let's just revive everyone. I mean, we do have the technology to like use their AI. You could try. Yeah, Marx.
You can even get them to talk.
We need to have a Marx account if we're gonna have a Bernstein account.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways, shall we return next week, same time, same place?
Yeah, I mean, we were so Monday at noon Eastern Standard Time was what we were doing.
Yeah,
so.
It seems to work because we have a lot bigger audience than we did on Tuesdays. So let's do it Monday noon. Yeah, so it could. Oh, we could also have lunch with Lenin. No,
lunch with Lenin. Lit with Lenin. Lunch with Lenin. Whole bunch of stuff.
Literature and lunch. Lenin.
We figured we had the late night, and everyone made fun of us right when we did the late night because they're like, "I'm watching from China. This is not late night."
Yeah.
So
now we'll have it timeless. Yes. Lit with Lenin is good.
We went with lit with Lenin.
And next week and this week we're having an exciting interview with Carl Za, which will talk about the opium trade. And you know, Astoria, that area in Queens is named after this guy named Mr. I forget his first name. Astor?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was lit.
Yeah.
Jacob Astor.
Jacob. All right.
I think his name is Jacob Astor.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
his first
dessert
name.
bar with Trotsky. Okay, sure. We
I
can do
just
dessert bar.
bar with Trotsky. We
Wait,
did.
okay, I was gonna make a joke about ice creams with dessert. I won't.
JJ Astor. JJ
Okay,
Astor. That sounds right. I always just know the New York Astros.
Okay. Yeah. So he basically got all the money from the opium trade. And so when you trade one bit of heroin, like this much, you go to jail. But when you supply all of China with heroin, you get your entire city named after you, Astoria.
Yeah, and you just had the episode about Morocco.
Yeah, that was really cool. We learned about this female pirate.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Techloid Tech. You are so sweet. Thank you so much.
Also, I had to type your channel in.
Somebody else complained, and I don't know what to do. I will figure this out for next week, along with making this numbers disappear.
I do follow it, so it does come up on my side, but I have noticed I have a hard time searching for historically if I go into YouTube, if I'm not in, because I have a couple other accounts because I run, I run a Left Without Border. So if I'm in there and I don't have historically right there, it's harder to find you guys. Find this account.
I will have to figure out what to do. I will give me a week and I'll figure this out. With that, we'll say Svobodu narodu smrti fascismu.
See you next week.